What's up, everybody? It's your boy Rebel here, and for today's episode of Rebel's Retrospective, Crash 2 Cortex Strikes Back. Now, this game is truly one of a kind. This has got to be the only PlayStation exclusive sequel to a brand new revolutionary IP that started a cult-like following with many sequels. Get out of here!
On you, Crash Bandicoot!
Now, before we get into this, I will be playing the Insane Trilogy edition of the game because I could say something about it being the definitive version of the game, but I own it, and yeah. Also, Crash 4 It's About Time will be coming out soon, and what better way to celebrate than by playing the remastered trilogy that got us to where we are in the first place? There isn't one, that's why I'm doing it. Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back. Yes, after the commercial success that was Crash Bandicoot, it was only natural to assume that it would get a sequel. But to do so as successfully as they did, and doing so in shortly over a year, is quite the testament. Crash 2 fixed almost every flaw prevalent in the first game, from an increased moveset with nothing gimmicky, to much more diverse levels. But not only that, in the original version of the game, it had a save screen. Yes, unlike Crash 1 where you need to beat a Tana stage to get a password to save the game, you could save this game anytime you want in the hub, which made this game actually beatable to me. I mean, maybe, I was 6. Another change was making it to where you could die and still get almost all of the gems. No more of that stupid, you can't even die a single time and get a single gem nonsense from the original. However, I am talking about the Insane Trilogy, so thank God none of that was in there anyway. But that doesn't stop the fact that Crash 2 Cortex Strikes Back is a much better game, even with the Insane Trilogy unifying the 3 games. And that mainly comes down to what I listed earlier, new moves and better levels, but I'll get to that soon. First, I wanted to talk about my history with this game, cause boy do me and this game go way back. So growing up, I had a friend who got a PlayStation, and with it, Crash Bandicoot, and I wasn't necessarily impressed. However, about 1 short year later, I went to his house and he showed me Crash Bandicoot 2, and I loved that game. So much so that I begged my mom with giddy excitement for my very own PlayStation so I could play Crash at my own house all by myself. Unfortunately, it took a year of begging and the game I got was Warped and Spyro, so yes. And I ended up trading Warped for Cortex Strikes Back a few times so me and my friend could each enjoy both of them. Essentially what I'm saying is Crash is my first forte into console gaming, and while the first game didn't make me fall in love, the second game definitely left its mark. So as far as nostalgia for games can go, Crash 2, Crash 3, CTR, the Spyro trilogy, Medieval, and Ape Escape, and I guess Gex, why not, were all games that I would play endlessly as a kid. However, that was only until the GameCube came out and completely changed everything. So being that I have super fond memories of this game, I bet you're wondering if I'm going to be objective. And I am. For like 45 seconds. The only flaw of Crash 2 by today's standards is that you can beat it in a few hours if you know what you're doing. And yes, that means I will not be bitching about cold hard Crash here. It really isn't that hard. I mean, if you're going for all the gems, you must have done the same thing in Crash 1, which means you need to shut your mouth right now. Yes, there are death routes and I didn't even have to try and reach them, I just ended up not dying when I reached them. Yes, the new jetpack is super hard to control, but it rarely ever got me killed. And yes, some of the secrets are hard to stumble across, but compared to Crash 3, they make sense. However, at 6, I wasn't about to figure them out. Luckily, the internet just came out, so while looking up a couple Crash codes, I found a couple of these secrets and showed up to my friend's house, secrets memorized, and left my friend in shock as if I just resurrected his nana. And now that I've admitted to the very few and only flaws in Crash Bandicoot 2, Objective Rebel is gone and Subjective Rebel is here. So let's get that nostalgia flowing. So Crash 2 takes place after the events of Crash 1, assuming you didn't get enough gems to get the secret ending where you don't even fight Cortex, because this game starts with Cortex crashing into an island after, well, after you beat him in Crash 1, which is fine, except Crash 3 takes place after the secret ending that you get when you get all of the gems in this game. Consistency, am I right? So after beating Cortex at the end of Crash 1, he falls thousands of feet and survives by landing in a super soft cave full of crystals.
Crystals. Of course.
Oh yes, of course, crystals! Crystals! It all makes so much sense now. It doesn't make any sense, but it does establish that the crystals are important. 1 year later, Cortex and his new assistant, Dr. N-Jin, get it, Jin, because I'm an alcoholic, who are building the Cortex Vortex. They need 25 more crystals and have no operatives left on Earth. So Cortex says they should use an enemy. It then cuts to Crash and his little sister Coco. She asks for a battery for her laptop and Crash is like, screw this, I'm going to see Tana, when he's then kidnapped by Cortex, who says he needs our help to get 25 crystals. Okay, this doesn't make any sense. Even at 6, I knew that Cortex was the main villain. As an adult, I'm almost insulted that they would show Cortex telling Engine that they need an enemy's help, and then show me Coco trying to tell me as if that's something significant. That and I don't know, the name of the game. So Cortex tells you he needs 25 crystals, and whether or not you know he's lying is irrelevant. It's you need to get the crystals to progress regardless. It isn't long after until Cortex's ex-BFF, Dr. Embryo, contacts us telling us Cortex is up to no good, and that he can help us stop him if we collect all of the gems, not the crystals, and that if you collect the crystals instead, he'll have no choice but to send his forces to stop you. So technically, he sends the bosses to stop you, I think. However, if you don't get the crystals and only get the gems, I'm pretty sure you can't progress through the first warp room, but I'll have to check that. So yeah, I decided to only get gems, and there are 2 whole cutscenes of Cortex basically saying, no, Crash, the crystals. I got every gem in the first warp room minus the red gem because you need a secret entrance to get it. And I gotta say, that's a damn shame. A cutscene with Brio saying something along the lines of, haha, you got all of the gems but 1. I'll allow you to skip the boss and go to the next warp room, only if you continue to get only gems and no crystals. Ha! That wasn't even... I'm sorry. I don't know. I just think that would have been awesome. And then cutscenes with Cortex yelling at you, unable to do anything to stop you, bartering. And I know it wasn't in the original, but it should have been. And would it really have been that bad if it was in the remake but not in the original? Would people really have complained about that? I mean, knowing Cortex is lying, knowing you need to get the gems and not the crystals, yet needing to get all of the crystals regardless, as if Crash was too stupid to figure it out on his own. I mean, he kind of is. So you use the first warp room to get crystals for Cortex, or gems for Brio if you're going for the 100% ending, fighting new and familiar bosses along the way. And the way Cortex basically congratulates you at the end of each boss fight, being that Embryo is sending the bosses, is pretty interesting, since he's the main villain and everything. And once you collect all 25 crystals, Cortex, laughing maniacally, says his plans are nearly complete. Then Coco comes through and tells us Cortex isn't going to save the Earth, he's going to enslave it. Gasp, oh no, I'm so shocked, I never saw it coming. These writers and their twist endings, oh my god, I can't hide my shocked expression, what? So you finally stop Cortex. Sort of. You spin him away. And that's basically it. Then Coco is sitting there saying nothing happened to Cortex or the Cortex Vortex, but if you collect all the gems, Brio warps you to his laser sight or whatever and uses the gems to destroy Cortex's space station and the Cortex Vortex. And that is the real ending of Crash 2. Because Crash 3 assumes that the Cortex Vortex blew up. And as far as stories went in PS1 games, not bad. A lot better than Crash 1. And speaking of terrible segues, Crash has new moves. Yes, Crash can now make use of the wonderful and amazing circle button, because Naughty Dog realized, hey, we forgot about this thing. And now he can crawl. Okay, well, mainly it's used to slide, however, you will need to crawl a couple times in a few levels. But the slide, oh my god, the slide. So Crash handled fine in the first game, but the inclusion of the slide gives Crash this liquid feel. There are new enemies that must be slid to attack, like these fancy lizards. But the main thing is the slide jump, a boosted jump that gets you higher and farther than the original jump, allowing you to reach high up ledges or skip platforming challenges entirely. It also makes the new time trial in Crash 2 something that actually makes sense, unlike in Crash 1. However, it is still There's also a slide spin jump that's even better than the slide jump. Not sure if it was in the original, but it's awesome. There's also a body slam by pressing circle in midair to break annoying locked boxes and to get into somewhat secret areas. But that's it. But the slide jump does make Crash 2 an infinitely better and more enjoyable game. And to accommodate for the new moves, or I guess the new slide jump, the levels in Crash 2 are much more diverse. Not only in regards to obstacles and platforming design, but also in theme, which is great because I am tired of stupid jungles. Hey look, a jungle. Yes, I'll get into level design overall shortly, however I do want to go over the much more diverse level themes. Yes, the first stage is a jungle level, and so is the fourth, and I guess the river levels are incredibly similar to in Crash 1, and the temple ruin levels are back, but hey, there's snow levels now, and the hog levels now have a poor polar bear victim. Then there are the new sewer levels, which I've always loved. There are 2 more night levels with a needed light source, probably some of my favorites in all 3 games of the trilogy. There are 2 space levels that remind me a lot of a mix between the machinery levels in the generator room in Crash 1, as well as 2 brand new jetpack levels. And honestly, I'm not a fan of the jetpack controls. I kept going up when I meant to go forward, or forward when I meant to go up. I guess I'm just stubborn. I didn't die from the controls, but they are annoying. There also is the addition of the new jet board in the river levels, an awesome inclusion that I've always loved as a kid and still do to this day. And almost all of the levels still have bonus stages, but you don't need tokens to unlock them. Thank God. However, Tana's not at the end waiting for you. Did something happen to her? Is she missing? Does Crash know? Yes, the bonus stages are back and don't require tokens to get into. There's 1 in each level and are pretty fun, and do have boxes in them needed to get the silver box gem once again, just like in Crash 1. The main goal is of course getting the crystals, easy to get, impossible to miss, but the box gems are where it's at. There's more than just the box gems though, most levels have more than 1 silver gem. And the 6 color gems return as well, however I think the orange gem is gone. The other silver gems can be earned by completing a separate route in a level unlocked by either the colored gems or the new death routes, bringing back the challenge of the colored gems in the first game, but toning it down to about halfway through the level. The colored gems, however, have brand new ways of discovering, most of them not being too difficult to figure out. A stair set of nitro crates, for example, intimidating, however if you sit there, you'll notice they don't hop. And the stair shape being rather inviting. There's a timer that pops up in a couple levels, one giving another colored gem. There's a fake wall in a room full of nitro crates, rather suspicious for a fork to lead to a dead end of nothing but nitro crates. The blue gem, however, needs you to not break a single crate in the first level. And without a hint, I have no idea how kids figured this out. I sure as hell didn't. And on top of the secret of the colored gems, there's also a whole secret warp room. Yes, a 6th warp room can be found by finding 5 secret exits in 5 different levels. 3 of the levels are just previous levels, but 2 of them are completely secret, brand new levels. The secret entrances to the previous levels put you in a new start path, leading to the main path after getting either a silver gem or the taunting red gem that sits in the 2nd level, mocking you just out of reach. And the secret exits are great. Jumping backwards after Polar throws you off, boxes next to a jet board leading to a platform suspiciously empty. There is one where you have to belly flop a piranha plant, but I died 3 times in a row trying to belly flop on him and I knew it was an exit. If I didn't, I'd assume it wasn't supposed to because it didn't work. So the secrets, except for like 2, are clever, but not too hard to figure out. There's also a couple secret paths, like one where a bear destroys all of the planks except a couple, and it's the only time planks are left. So it's a hint. So I do like that these secrets actually make you think. Unlike the bosses. Such a good transition, huh? What? Because the bosses are easy and you don't really have to think. Are you done yet? I need to change the baby's diaper. So the bosses are, for the most part, just as uninspiring as in Crash 1. I'm starting to believe they had no idea what to do for bosses and were super thankful when they came up with a way to have one less boss than the first game. Ripperoo is back and just as boring as before. All you do is avoid him. The new Komodo Bros are probably even more boring even though you actually have to attack them a couple times. It's more avoiding. Tiny Tiger makes his first appearance and as a kid was one of my favorite villains, and the boss battle is actually pretty decent, all things considered. Dr. Engine is the 4th boss, and I guess the only boss Cortex actually sends to fight you himself. Now this is the best boss in the game, although nowhere near as good as his boss battle in Crash 3. You throw Wumpa Fruit at him continuously while hitting parts of his mech suit, destroying it. It's actually very fun. However, maybe having limited Wumpa to throw at him would make it a little bit better, or some sort of a cooldown timer, cause spamming square is just too easy. And lastly, a shining symbol of how bad Crash bosses were before Crash 3, Cortex himself. Probably one of the worst bosses ever for such a good game. Cortex slowly flies away and you, quite effortlessly I might add, catch up to him and spin him 3 times. It's very boring. Look, I can't make it clear enough how bad this is for a final boss. But I guess you could just say Crash is known for its great level design, and not its bosses. Definitely not its bosses. Then you have the music in Crash 2, and while overall I think it's a much better soundtrack than Crash 1, I do prefer the Crash 1 theme to this one. Besides that, each level theme has a song with a corresponding death route and bonus stage song. Every level's music is pretty awesome with the exception of maybe the sewer levels. The death routes are more intense versions of their counterparts, which is awesome. The bonus stage music is kind of bad. I don't really know what they were going for. Super upbeat versions of everything. I mean, it sounds like the Chow Garden from Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. And the boss music is just kind of there, doing nothing. Which is fitting because that's basically the bosses. God, I'm hilarious. So overall, Crash 2 is awesome. It's an amazing game, one that took the success of the first game before it and made every aspect of it better. The levels are slightly more diverse in theme, but the level design here is amazing. The music is great, the story is there, and the gameplay is so much fun. There are songs that are kinda lame, and the bosses suck, but in general, this is a solid game. And being that I just covered Crash 1, I can say that yes, Crash 2 is definitely a better game. Naughty Dog clearly knew what had worked and what succeeded in the first game and clearly improved on that. The new Warp Room base is much better than the straight line of the original. Death routes are better than the whole level without dying, and the diversity brought to the gameplay by the new slide jump is unmatched. Yes, 3 does bring some new stuff to the table, and even though I liked it more as a kid, after playing 1, 2, and yes, I already replayed 3, I have to say that 2 is more than likely my favorite. I'll cover this more in my Crash 3 retrospective, but it really does just come down to level design. There are more, better designed levels in Crash 2. The secrets are much funner to discover. The secrets in Crash 3 are pretty bad. And what I would say is the completely unenjoyable experience of the motorcycle levels. Crash 2 is my favorite of the original trilogy, and quite clearly a timeless classic. And that's gonna wrap it up for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. I know I said I was gonna do the bosses ranked in Crash 1 before I did this, but there's only 6 bosses in Crash 1, 5 in Crash 2, 5 in Crash 3, so I decided I'm just gonna do that all together after I cover the levels in Crash 3. So be sure to tide yourself over with some of my other Crash videos or just some of my Rebels retrospectives in general until more Crash videos come out. And to make sure you don't miss any of those upcoming Crash videos, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel and smash that notification bell, because coming up next time is gonna be Crash 2, the worst levels ranked, followed by Crash 2, best levels ranked, and then Crash 3 retrospective and Crash 3 worst levels ranked. See, it's this thing I'm doing where I'm like doing the games in order and ranking the levels. And is that a fart? Power fart. Got it on camera.